jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
We're here for another short and sweet episode. Jon Mark and I just basically tackle just what appeals about the cult movie that is The Hitcher. All began in 1986. Drifter C. Thomas Howell and girlfriend Jennifer Jason Leigh are stalked by an unnamed stranger, known as The Hitcher, played by Rutger Hauer, and was followed by a loosely related sequel and a pretty stupid remake. And so, John, when you first tackled a bunch of these movies that were a mixture of action, mystery, and horror, what do you think about this particular movie that just kind of changed the game a bit, just really upped the stakes for all those genre mashups and all these just mysterious vibe-filled movies that mix road trips with, danger?
Well, for me, I think it's mostly just how the film combines both action and horror together pretty seamlessly. I think that's what influenced quite a few of the movies down the line, much later on.
Right. And I would just always see just so many different titles at the various video stores and on TV, and it's like they weren't doing knockoffs of like the Terminator or Warlock, and then well, more than not, they're definitely influenced by The Hitcher. I definitely saw it the most in movies that predate this, like Duel, as well as Jeepers Creepers, especially Part 1. It's like there was just that wanting to just show that the worst kind of terror just always happens on the road, and you just have a car crash of a movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, were you already a big fan of Rutger Hauer when you saw this movie?
Actually, here's the interesting part. This is the one that introduced me to Rutger Hauer.
Woo!
Because I actually didn't know who he was, because I was a little kid when I first watched this.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
This had to
And
be very terrifying.
yeah, that's why I never pick up hitchhikers, period. But no, this is the one that introduced me to him, and that's when I found out he was in Blade Runner, and then some other ones like Surviving the Game, a few
Right.
of those. But this is still my favorite performance from him to this day. Like, he's still one of the most terrifying characters in a horror film. I mean,
Indeed. And I just really can't fathom that it's already been almost a year since we lost him. And it's like, damn, because that actor was just so giving, so seductive, so restrained, and really didn't even really get typecast as any Eurotrash type villain, not even in Nighthawks. Just to see him just envelope every kind of movie, and just seeing all these other rumors and behind the scenes talk about how certain actors felt threatened by his presence to where they wanted to try and have his scenes cut, and it didn't matter. He pretty much still stole the movie from him. And it's like, that's one of a kind of talent. He has a wonderful book, which I referenced the last few episodes on when we talked about Blade Runner and Soldier, and we talked about how he has a wonderful book called All These Memories, and he just would always provide very exclusive on-set experience. Now, I wasn't able to reread the chapter where he got to, the year 86, but this is definitely around the time where he starts becoming, HBO sees how there's some international interest, so they always want to start. This is around the same time that they start doing the world premiere movies, where they would air them before they went to other basic cable or VHS only releases at the video store, and they would just that was just part of what they offered on their premium service. They're just like, okay, you want to see it, before it goes to the festivals or the video store, see it a few months in advance on our service. That's where it's going to premiere first. And they did so many movies with him in it, that they would just premiere. They just, because they produced this movie for their theatrical outlet. And so it definitely helped out the next stages of his 90s career while doing occasional, theatrical appearances. And I think everybody holds their own in this. Jennifer Jason Leigh doesn't have much to do, but she's not, a stupid protagonist. And, C. Thomas Howell allows a lot of the rare mixture of just, painful humanity and reluctant bravery. Whenever he's yelling, no, it's not, it's not whiny, but it's also not, superhuman. I all of a sudden know how to use a gun and everything. It's just, and it's cool seeing how the police are rendered incapable. They're going through all these other parts of the state, and it's just everybody is just pretty much in this desert wasteland, just expecting trouble, and it just allows them the freedom to do so much different things. And the music score is also very beautiful.
Oh, it is.
Mark Isom, who did plenty of other great scores, Blade, and much like Hans Zimmer, got started scoring so many lesser seen drive-in cult features before being the go-to A-list composer. And nowadays it's mainly people like James Newton Howard and everything, but I'm just saying, I think it's overall just a very neat package. It's definitely one of the best things by what's his name, who did Near Dark and is always working on a few different things. Eric Red. He's working on like a few like Bigfoot types horror films. And I think because he has a great sense of the unknown, I'm going to even make an unpopular statement that I feel like he's kind of more relevant than some of the other guys who get tossed in the action thriller horror map. And it's just he and Philip Noyce, and maybe even I want to say probably, oh hell, I got to, I'll just name drop too many people, but I just feel like those guys really do so many crowd pleasers, and they just do so many often ignored techniques. It's like, they're going way the hell back to even, Polanski or Hitchcock levels of, play around with the lights.
That's true, especially the Hitchcock level in this movie, what they're going for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, and I really do wish that would happen more often. It's like, okay, like before we started this recording, for instance, we were talking about the recent war movie hit, The Outpost. There's some pretty good CGI in that, but it's very limited. For the most part, it's just very small visual cues just indicating that, what's going on inside the character's mind before the next battle sequence is like, that's very effective. And this is definitely a product of those kind of things, just using a lot of just smaller elements. What would you say are kind of the better post-Hitcher type movies that come out after this? Because it seems like this becomes Duel 2.0, where every other movie's referencing it. have any that kind of cross your mind?
I'm trying to think of some.
It's all good.
Naturally. Oh man, is there anything I can think of? Can't think of any in the top.
Yeah, okay, there
Yeah.
you go. No competition. Not even Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah. Okay, wait, Jeepers Creepers. Even though
Right.
it's an actual creature compared to this.
Right.
And that's the only good one of the Jeepers Creepers films. But I'm not gonna go into that right now.
All good.
Yeah.
And more or less, I think it's just this is one of the few times where we see people being very comfortable, just going there, willing to not overdo, just all these big scale sequences and making sure it actually serves the story.
Mhm.
The sequel might not be much to write home about, but it's hardly shabby compared to most direct-to-video sequels. I remember way back in the day, it got played very religiously on USA Network and heavily hyped up on every other Universal home video ad. But I thought it was not bad, especially because, Hal was still pretty invested in the role, even talked about working on the movie rather positively. And so I was like, okay, so it wasn't a rushed shit show. And they actually just wanted to do kind of a legit sequel, and they just didn't want to bother with, all the marketing it for a theatrical run. But
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pox disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time.
Ah,
Tangents galore.
yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Ah, yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah,
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
ah, ah,
all
yeah.
that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Yeah. don't run the listeners away, PJ.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll go end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
did
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-last plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy. At eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
This is definitely, out of all these movies, I think I definitely recommend watch the first Terminator, or better yet, even watch T2, and then do it as a double feature with Hitcher 1. It'll be a lot of fun.
Actually, you know what? I didn't even think about that. That would work perfectly.
That, maybe even Maniac Cop. Just do something where you're just seeing a bunch of, helpless deputies, a bunch of unusual bystanders who are witnessing just this unusual stalker who... And compared to other movies, I've seen other movies do this, and where there's two A-listers or semi-known actors facing off on the big screen, and it got very old after a while because half the time they would just rely on the star power. They would literally explain virtually nothing going on, so it just felt lazy as a result. And this is the one where enough unusual bizarreness is done at the start to where you know that the guy's just a psychopath and he will never really know his agenda. So, I love Roger Ebert, but he massacred this movie so much back in the day, and it's like,
Yeah.
out of all the movies with plot twists and everything galore, I think this one pulled it off way better compared to so many other ones throughout the 90s that would have cat and mouse games between two, big A-listers. And, out of all this one, you can't predict anything because nothing is given. You have to pretty much just take it all away and get blown away every sequence, every, car pound. And I don't think there's even any explosions in this fucking movie. I definitely can't recall one. Maybe near the end.
I thought there was one.
Yeah, definitely near the end. But
I think
that's just,
I remember.
but that's just it. Is that it wasn't Fast and Furious. It wasn't where I'm just concentrating on what car is being used for what chase scene.
But just to point out about the Ebert thing,
yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest here, Ebert was not a big fan of horror films, especially quite a few of them.
I see that a lot, and it seems like he gave Scream a pass, but before and after, it really had to be something that was just kind of like The Shining or Dead Calm, where it was horror mystery kind of. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like if it was Carpenter or the newest sci-fi epic, even with Van Damme, he was gonna take it to the bank, saying it's the worst pile of crap he'd ever seen.
Although I can't complain with Scream because it's my favorite horror film, but
right,
I think he liked the sequel more, which I like the sequel, but yeah, I prefer the original. But I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, unless it was like one of the initial Alien movies, he was not gonna be very kind to horror. He had to just really feel the pain in the room. He had to really feel like there was threatening stuff going on. Now, in terms of psychopath movies, he'd rave about them, whether it was something like Wild Things, Basic Instinct, or even freaking what's the other one?
Well, that was Rejects he praised.
Right.
I'm still baffled to this day. Why?
And then what's the other one? Falling Down. He was a really big fan of, and he really
remember that.
Yeah, that's what's so wild is like everyone else was bashing it, and he's like, I get it. We've never seen this kind of character study before, and Siskel just absolutely hated it, and he's like, no, Siskel, you're so off, man. This is this is so emotional, and
well, Siskel was always weird. That's the thing.
Yeah. He felt pressure.
Was just
he felt pressure to give T2 a good score, even though he didn't like the first one. I'm like, yeah, no, don't kiss our ass. Come on now.
And then the one that drives me nuts, and I can go all day about this one, was the Broken Arrow one. When I think it was him that gave it a thumbs up, and then
then took it back.
Yeah, took it back and gave it a thumbs down. I'm like, what? If you like it, you like it. Come on.
Yeah.
That just annoys me.
I think he would have way more credibility if he hadn't even gone on a whole anti-video game rant. It's like,
yeah.
And the sad thing is, I kind of agree with him. I don't think video games have as interactive a story, but if you haven't played them, you still have some holes in your argument.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
It's like, yeah, no, I don't think anyone ever wanted them to replace movies. They were just saying it felt like a movie at times, kind of like how TV shows were becoming more edgy and gritty, and music was becoming more explicit, less censored. So I think that's all people were saying, and he took it the wrong way and said, they will never replace movies. It's like, well, see, some people, that's all they want to do is play video games by themselves or with friends, as opposed to watch a movie for 2 hours that wears them out, either does or doesn't deliver on what it promises. So
true.
With this one, the trailer really, from what I recall, didn't really give too much away, and I think that was cool, because there were a lot of 80s and 90s movies that had spoilers galore. They had to have all the money shots, so to speak, in there, and it's like, you gave it all away.
Although it's still not as bad as nowadays. Nowadays, they just give you the whole movie.
Oh yeah, nowadays, and some of that is just even just second takes that aren't even in the final movie, and it's just still angering. It's like, you liars.
That's why I kind of, the ones I am going to see, which I am going to see in the theater, no tricks, just nope, going in blind, because
Yeah, you got to. I mean, I never even saw many of those trailers before I saw the movies. They were always just fun to watch. But, I mean, to see the Wachowski siblings still just kind of daring to even just go back into that tunnel and say, yeah, we still have another expansion of it. We embrace the cyberpunk pop culture nature of it all.
Yeah.
And just seeing how so many other careers were born from that movie, you know, Carrie-Anne Moss, Hugo Weaving, and even freaking Robert Taylor went on to be the lead star on Longmire. So you could definitely say the same about going back to this with Hitcher. It's like, so many people, you know, they're already semi-stars, but it's like, oh man, by this point now, everyone's always just has their number and calls them up for every other project, and it's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd give definitely a 4 to the first one, 3.5 for the second one, and definitely a 2 out of 5 for the stupid ass remake. It's just so much fun to make fun of because none of the actors care, and the music is by Nine Inch Nails, which I normally love, but they're playing all their hits and a bunch of other heavy metal that just does not fit the scene at all. I remember just watching it, it's like, oh boy, I can only imagine how many people just gave that movie the middle finger when they went to see it opening day.
Well, for me, with The Hitcher, I gave the first one, I give 5 out of 5.
Woo!
The sequel, I'm not as positive, but
oh, good.
With me, I'm more probably 1.5 out of 5.
Oh, good.
But the remake is basically either a half or 0.
It's all
Go
good.
back and forth.
I can't blame you. It's just noise pollution. I just love making fun of it because it's just so stupid.
Sean Bean at least tries, but don't get anything to work with. And he would have been great if he actually tried.
That's pretty much it. The music video guy wasn't inspired. Michael Bay was being heavy-handed with the whole production, overseeing it. And then, Sophia Bush, she tried. She'd already, coincidentally enough, I keep going back to Terminator. She was supposed to be the lead in T3. She lost out to that. She's got this crap fest instead while doing a few different TV shows. And it's like, she has nothing to work with. I don't even remember who the male lead was. He wasn't very memorable. It's like the only thing different they really do is the female gal, survives and the, boyfriend dies instead of the other way around. But like you say, it's like
they actually show the death with the truck.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like,
I'm sorry. It's better that we don't see it. It's better but what we think in our heads is scarier than what was shown.
Right, and this is the post-Saw nature, and this is back when, everybody's got to show everything, and it's coming out the same year as Grindhouse and a bunch of other just throwbacks, and it's like, and there's a reason those were infamous, and people would laugh at the screens. It's just ridiculous. It's it's gross, but Neil McDonough is totally just being very over the top as the sheriff in that one, and it's just like, Jesus.
I barely remember him in that. So
and I have a pet rabbit, and I'm sorry, she does not like the opening scene where a rabbit gets mowed over. And it's like, it has nothing to do with the rest of the story. It doesn't even set a tone.
Nope, it's just to surprise you. Basically, that's it.
Yeah, shock value.
That's it.
Cheap.
Just wait.
Take 2 on the rabbit. Oh wait, CGI. Okay, cool. That's why it's not as upsetting.
Yeah.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.